That I mean that I have not been putting my face or my content or my ideas out in public. It's been hard to create content, in fact, because I've been in a mode that I call hiding under a rock. And perhaps, especially if you're an introvert, you might do the same thing where you spend some time in the back of your head thinking and contemplating and developing. And in fact, that's a lot of what I do when I hide under a rock is I go into development mode. And I have a program that's coming out in just a couple weeks. And that's what I've been working on. And it's really hard for me to put content out. It's hard to blog. It's hard to do social media. It's hard to email when I'm very busy thinking. They're two different, I've got stuff in my hands. They're two different ways of thinking. Hey, Marcus, welcome. It's nice to see you. Hello. It's really hard for me to switch. There are different modes. There's development and then there's output. There are different types of energy. There are different types of focus. Thank you. Thank you, Marcus. It's nice to be back out from under the rock, but I have to admit that when I'm in this development mode where I feel like I just think about it, I'm in the shade, I'm under a rock, I'm someplace cozy, thinking and processing, I enjoy that work a lot. And it's just a different way of using my brain than the output. And I think that we all experience things like this to some point where especially when it comes to creative time, if you think about those moments when you're in the shower or driving or walking and ideas kind of come forward, there's a certain part of your brain that is accessed, that you can access when you're relaxed, like in those modes. Just like when we're talking to somebody but we're thinking about something else. We're like talking to somebody while we're driving or talking to somebody while we're walking. We process things differently in those modes versus others where we're more focused and active. And that's what I'm talking about. But the thing and I know it's like Friday as I'm talking to you today, and at least here in the US, and it's, we're all getting ready to go on the weekend. So it's a weird time, I think, to go live. But for me, I really wanted to touch base and I think just express that we do not value that processing time enough. One of the things that I think we consider as a culture, consider to be our success or that we've been active is because we're putting things out. We're churning out content, right? Have I been on social media? Have I sent an email? Have I been blogging? And those things should be consistent and need to happen. But in turn, we don't value this time of development that we all spend putting a course together, putting a program together. And that, even if it's just making a decision or realizing something, that is valuable too. So Marcus and anybody else watching this, tell me, do you ever find yourself spending that time in development mode where it's hard to put content out because one is active and the other feels, it's not passive, it's just internal. One's outgoing, one's ingoing or internal. I don't have words for this, but I wanted to share this with you because I think we need to value this time that we spend processing and thinking and developing these ideas, because it's from this deep time, this deep thinking time, that some amazing things can come. And that's what's going on here is I've been working on a program and really not just putting it together mentally, but also getting up the courage and envisioning it and really sinking into what does this idea look like and running it by the people that I trust to get really good feedback to help me really ferret out what is this going to look like. I said it to somebody recently. I was like, I feel like I've been working with a skeleton and they're really helping me flesh it out and make it real and make it meaty, which is really a kind of a gross way of saying it. But but that's what I feel like. And now I'm just a couple weeks from talking about it for real. So you'll be hearing about it soon. But I really just wanted to talk about how much we need to value this time we spend putting things together. So Marcus, you have a program on YouTube where you've been working with other people to develop ideas. And what's really exciting about how you do that is you bring it into conversation, and that's where a lot of the processing happens. But there's a lot of back-end thinking that happens too before those calls and after those calls. And that's what I'm talking about, is spending our time in our heads developing these ideas. What's interesting, at least in my world, is that it wasn't that long ago that I didn't spend a lot of time in my head because I considered it to be a scary place. And it was through years of therapy that I was able to really get into my head and start doing this. And it made me, it was hard work, but it was useful work because it made it easier for me and more beneficial. It made it easier, more possible for me to actually develop these kinds of ideas. The membership that I have right now came out of some serious time spent under this rock thinking about things. Marcus says, I try to have my content creation as streamlined and easy as possible so I can be consistent. That is the secret, Marcus, that absolutely is you need to make it streamlined. And if I know that I'm going to go into development mode, then I can even use automation systems to schedule it ahead of time. That's some place where I want to get better. I want to get better at realizing that I'm going under the rock and maybe pause, do some work so that I can set up some time. I do that with my clients where I can do things 4 weeks and even more ahead of the times if we have things coming up like vacations or programs and things like that. But it's harder when it's me because I suddenly realize I'm under the rock, and it's really hard to switch modes between this active putting out of content and this internal processing. So these are always challenges that we're working on. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that to you, and the message is being simply that we, in my opinion, need to value the processing and the development more. That's, if you think about the iceberg, we see the results, but we don't see all this work that goes on underneath the water, which is the bigger part of the iceberg. And that's where I've been spending my time. In any case, that's it. I'm hoping to see you more over the next few weeks as I crawl out from under the rock, and I hope you have a good weekend. It is usually, yes, Marcus says it's usually easier to care about others than ourselves. 100%. It absolutely is. And I think that that's a key component here is some of it is, where is the work happening? And some of it is also what is the emotional tie that you have? We are emotionally invested in our own businesses, which in my opinion is why it's harder to market your own business than to market somebody else's. But most of us are in the business of promoting our own businesses. And so that's what we have to do. And so we have to, it's not that we can't, it's just harder, and we have to learn how. And there's just work involved. So in any case, thank you, Marcus, for stopping on by. It's great to see you. It must be Friday night there where you are, over in Switzerland, I think. It is coming up on 4 here in the U.S., so I'm going to get my weekend started. But it was nice to check in with you, and I will look forward to talking to you again next week. Until then, have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon.